Commissioner Bear,
Present.
Commissioner Walls, Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Commissioner Duckham, Commissioner Pileski,
Here.
Commissioner Willis,
Here.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Snell, Chairman Shotwell.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? Public comment is now closed. Approval of the minutes of April 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Have
Support.
a motion and support. Any comments? Any comments? Being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried. Item 5, update of the 2025 budget.
Controller Overton, you have the floor.
Thank you. We just want to give you just a quick little synopsis here of, things that have changed, things we're looking at, the more significant things. And of course, we'll be bringing the full budget presentation, first week of August. And Cecilia, you have the floor.
All right, good morning. So yes, we've started our budget meetings. We've had probably about 9, 10 meetings so far. Things are going well. Just want to kind of bring you some highlights of things that we're seeing so far. And so the first thing I always do is just start looking at revenue. How much do we think property taxes are going to increase, that type of thing. So I always end up talking to our equalization director and seeing what his thoughts are. And right now he's probably estimating like a 3.5% increase. We feel like he kind of feels like it's conservative, but he thinks it'll at least be that. So those dollars give us about almost $1.4 million of increase in revenue, which is positive. The other thing too, the governor does have a recommendation right now for revenue sharing. And so for looking for Jackson County, that increase is about $355,000. So that's also a positive. So if her recommendation passed, that's what it will be. So we really won't know until July, but that's what it looks like right now. The other thing that has been a positive thing for us for the past couple of years has been the marijuana funds. Last year this current year we did receive about $900,000, which was $300,000 more than we budgeted the year before. So right now we won't know until spring of next year really what we'll receive, but I'm just going to go ahead and just budget the $900,000, which is really an increase again of $300,000 for our 25 budget, because that's what I had done when we did the draft. So right now, just adding that up together, it's about $2 million of increases in revenue. Now, we get to our expenditures. I start with the positive first. Well,
Public
right now, we're building a budget as if we are going to receive it. Is that what you're? Oh, okay. Yes. This is our budget. Okay. We are building the budget right now as if the jail millage, the public safety millage is going to pass.
And that has been our plan all along.
And it has been the plan all along.
If it doesn't pass, we will be changing the budget in August.
That's why we're starting now and not waiting till August.
Yeah, well, we have, basically Plan A and Plan B, and we could talk about Plan B, but to be frank, there's no use going down that road and causing heartburn for a whole lot of people until we know for sure. And then we'll come and have a meeting and explain it all.
All right, so with the expenditures, these are what the things that we know for sure, that are going to be increases to our expenditures. The first one is the jail medical services. They have gone out to bid, and the lowest bid is still an increase of $400,000 for jail medical costs.
If my understanding was, and I haven't seen all the paperwork on it all, but the sheriff had indicated at one of our meetings that he believed that it's going to be an additional $400,000 for inmate medical. I'm not sure they've got all the bids. I know, but I know he said that, so I.
He
we're-
did say
we're-
it was it's continuously been the lowest bid.
Yeah,
It's
so-
still an increase of $400,000.
It's the number we're running with.
So that's the number I have in the budget right now. The other one is our increase in health
I have a
insurance.
question to that.
Yes,
What
sir.
was the increase to that? You said, I'm sorry.
400,000.
Okay, and then are these services generally come from the millage dollars? General fund?
I mean,
They're all general fund.
Oh, okay. Is there any way that this could have been used through the millage?
Well, sure, if you have enough jail millage to pay for, this is jail services, clearly could be paid for. But remember, we're not anticipating, even if the millage passes, of fully funding the jail. The jail is what, $7+ million? We're only looking at maybe 1.5 from the millage. So the most of it does come from the general fund and always has, always will be.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
no problem. Okay, and the other thing we know for sure is our health insurance. It looks like it's going to go up 8%. And so the total cost for that is about $558,000 for our health insurance, for employee health insurance. Yes, yes. 558, but you can round it 580, yeah. We could use some Overton rounding.
There's the million.
Cecilia, that's the difference if you haven't noticed. Cecilia will say 555,000. I'll say 500 plus.
So it's an inside joke between the two of us. Anyways, okay. So the other thing we know for sure is we do have an increase in our DB, which are defined benefit plan contribution, and that total is $1,071,521. We know for sure that that number is accurate. That was for our actuary, and so we need to plan for that. $71,521,
As compared to how much are we paying now?
about $460,000.
Okay, so $600,000 increase. Okay.
Yes.
That was the increase.
Yeah, it was increased. So this is the total. You're right. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The drain office is requesting a full-time engineer, and they're also requesting a part-time employee, and that's right around $150,000.
Yeah, if I may elaborate just briefly on that. As you recall, we had a situation in the drain office where he had made some changes, needed to make some changes to his deputy. So she works part-time, basically. Think of it as 19, 20 hours a week. And he's going to backfill the other part-time position. That's where he gets that half position. And then from an engineering standpoint, he has not had an engineer for a long time. He contracts out when he has need in the past. We believe at this time that it is in his and frankly the county's best interest to go ahead and engage him a full-time person to get started on a number of projects that he has. Drain commissioner.
So, so that pretty much eats up the increase we have in revenue. So, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So, any other questions?
What was the increase to the drain commissioner's office?
It was, in total, it's about $150,000.
150.
That's with wages and benefits and
Okay, thank you,
between the two, with both positions.
thank you.
Just so I'm understanding it right, the defined benefit increase is over 100%.
Yes.
Maybe Mike's better to answer this. I'm not sure. If you are, go for it. What is the cause of that significant of an increase?
Do you want to shop?
I was going to say, I know Chair.
I'll let Steve.
Do you remember the recession that was a year and a half ago? Do you remember the inflation that's gone on the last 3 years? Okay. Our return on investment has been averaging over 8.3%, but 8.3% does not cover the recession, nor does it cover the inflationary pressures that were put on our retirement fund. Now, the other thing that occurs with our retirement fund versus, say, the medical care facility is that we have closed our fund. So now you have to do division based on less number of years that it's going to exist. So the idea is that eventually this fund will no longer exist. It'll be completely gone when the last person dies that's in it right now. Well, With that, the math is different than when you're operating at a continual run out of 30 years.
In other words, without people paying into it any longer.
Correct. So, and the other thing you've got is you have the executive summary that I gave you last month at the Tuesday night meeting that you all received. If you really want to get into it, there is a chart in the back of it called on the Gagsby side that shows you the division over the 26 years and where the money runs out at. Yes, sir. Commissioner Bear.
Thank you. The recession that you mentioned, the inflationary factors that you mentioned, those are affecting every citizen in the county. And where's the additional funding going to come from? We're going to start taking more from the citizens who are also subject to this inflation and recession?
Well, in Michigan, counties are required to go to the voters and ask them for money and agree to a millage increase. At this time, we've not done that. And so we're not asking the citizens to pay more money. We're asking them to pay what they've been paying right along based on what the millage rate is as adjusted by Headley and adjusted by inflation going forward on their pieces of property. So the only increase that we're asking for right now is on the jail millage. Any further questions of our? If you do have questions that you think of later, please pass them through Michael Overton's office, and Cecilia will get you the response that you so rightly deserve.
Yes, I will.
Mr. Chair, if we might, could we maybe get an email from the administrator's office kind of summarizing the items we've talked about today?
Sure.
Just, here's, in round numbers, here's where we stand.
We can give you her exact numbers.
Well, that's, well, okay, they're necessarily round at this stage, I get that. But I think the fact that our assumptions are that the millage will pass, our assumptions
Yes.
are that 3.5% increase on our property taxes are, and here are the large expense increases, here are the large revenue increases. And with respect to the pension, the reason Cecilia has such a precise number on that is because an actuary
Yes.
arrives at that based on studies that I
Yes.
not
yep,
understand. And
Yep.
so that's what the number is.
Right.
Commissioner Bear.
Cecilia, whatever you were reading from there,
Yes.
I don't think you're amazing enough to have all that memorized. So you're probably reading from something. Could you share that document with all the commissioners?
That's what we're going to do.
Administrator Overton will be sharing that with all the commissioners, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Further questions?
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
Now for the prime event of today's show, Materials Management Plan.
Well, geez, where to begin? This is a big, complex problem. The state has made amendments to what otherwise would be the solid waste plan. They've changed the name to the materials management plan. To
Kept the name and
115, we're required to develop a materials management plan. But,
also part 11.
yes. Okay. With that, I'm going to let Jacob start. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, I believe Ms. Administrator Overton's put together a packet that pretty much summarizes the next steps. Still preliminary, but essentially, the county needs to file a notice of intent to write the plan by July 6th. That's done electronically, but the step before that is for the county to agree to be the county approval agency, which essentially means you retain control of the process. That has to happen before we can file the notice of intent with the state that will proceed with the plan. If we just do not, the county decides not to file the notice of intent, the state will come in and write the plan for you. So I think the expectation or the hope is that county agrees to be the CAA at the June 18th meeting, which will enable the filing of the notice of intent by the July 6th deadline. That then triggers a couple periods of time. We'll have 120 days to appoint the designated planning agency. And given the short staff nature that we have at Region 2, discussions with Mike, it's probably best to do this from a consultant perspective. So that would, RFP I think has gone out, our request for qualifications for consultants to show some interest in becoming the designated planning agency, which would be essentially they would write the plan. You have 120 days to get that in place from notice of intent, so that takes you to about November of this year to get that done. Running concurrently, you have to appoint a materials management plan. You have 180 days from notice of intent to do that. In Administrator Overton's packet, the Materials Management Planning Committee is comprised of 11 members representing certain entities. Then during that 180 days as well, the designated planning agency has to file a work program, kind of an outline of what the materials management plan will be with the state for the state to approve it. And then that begins the process of roughly 3 years to get the plan completed.
Questions? Yes, sir.
So to summarize, what we are going to be called upon to do in June, we, the county commission,
Correct.
in preparation for the July 6th deadline, is to decide whether we drafts our materials management plan.
Essentially correct, yes.
And whether we collaborate, I suppose, with any other county, and it doesn't look like anybody around us is prepared to collaborate. So,
Correct.
I mean, I'll tell you, my personal view is that I prefer not to see Eagle decide for us what we want to do. So the decision, in my view, is pretty easy. The county is going to be, we're going to say, we're going to do it, and we'll make that filing by July 6th. Am I right with that process?
Correct. First step is to appoint the county itself as the county approval agency, which kind of runs the whole process. As far as the other two counties in Region 2, Hillsdale is, the last we know, is going to partner with Calhoun and kind of write a multi-county plan. Lenawee is going on their own. So most everybody else seems to be writing them on their own.
Commissioner Beer.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple questions here. My first thought is who's driving this bus? Somebody decided that they could make the decision that Region 2 was going to work with the county to get the MMP off the ground. I don't believe that question ever came to the Board of Commissioners. So who's driving this bus? Who decided that they were going to make that decision? Further on that same line, somebody released a request for proposal soliciting for the consultant to act as the county's designated planning agent. I didn't see that that request for proposals before it went out, and I don't think the Board of Commissioners approved it. How the language in those is put together will make a difference on who you get. We've got some good environmental groups out there that are interested in improving our environment. Conservationists, conservation is about wise use. We've got other people out there that just want to control our lives and everything we do within our lives. And I don't want that type of person working on this project. We need somebody that's going to be sympathetic to our citizens and not pushing through some leftist agenda that started in California. You state that you expect the board to agree with this. You should say you hope so. You shouldn't just be telling me you expect me to do something. I might choose just not to because of that. The MMPC, any meetings that these have to be open to the public so the public can have input. And the members that will be on this MMPC It needs to be the Board of Commissioners that makes those decisions, not the administrator, not Region 2. That's a board responsibility. We have to be careful who we choose for these different representatives. Environmental Interest Group, the Audubon Society is an environmental interest group that they have proved to be dishonest for years and years. They have an agenda that probably doesn't work with the citizens of Jackson. You state you believe the program would require 2 more full-time employees. Why would we need 2 more employees if we are contracting with a designated planning agent and we have an MMPC to review anything? Under the financials, undetermined currently. So why are we deciding that we need to hire 2 more people? These, looking through the Eagle documents, what they're talking about is going to cost every citizen more money. I have 1 trash can out in front of my house. I pay a monthly fee for that. If I have to put 3 trash cans out there, some for trash, some for glass, some for tin cans, the company that's providing that dumpster and picking it up weekly for me is going to up my rate 3 times. They're going to need to send different vehicles and provide me separate dumpsters. So every citizen in this county that generates any kind of trash now, their costs are going to go up greatly. We need to keep that into consideration when we are making decisions here. We've got citizens that fixed incomes, low incomes, they have difficulty meeting their needs now for food and shelter, and we got to tell them now you're going to have to pay triple for your trash. We need to maintain a focus on our low-income citizens so we don't put them in greater harm than what they are now. Thank you.
Any other questions? So in the past, our solid waste management plan, the Board of Commissioners designated the Board of Public Works to be that permanent agency instead of creating a new committee. We use that as our agency.
Chair? If continuing that same format, would that incur a larger cost to the county?
I don't, in my thought, would be, we have no idea what the cost is gonna be,
Oh, okay.
okay? Our administrator Overton went to a seminar specifically on this and met with, there were other county administrators from across the state of Michigan. And I think you were there also, Katie, correct?
One of our staff people were.
Yeah. And, became aware that the revenue stream on this may be starting at the manufacturer level versus at the mandated level. Again, arm waving, not knowing for sure. You wanna talk a little bit about that committee or that study you went to?
Well, yeah, I went to the recycling conference in Port Huron for a couple of days. And as you indicated, learned all about this. The Eagle was there and explained it all. Kept telling us how flexible they are, and we could not take as much time as we need, but no worries. The deadlines they got to have a deadline, but it's not hard and fast. I'm like, okay, great. But the bottom line is it's a change in state law. We do not have any choice. We will end up with some type of materials management plan. Either we do it ourselves or Eagle will do it for us and impose it upon us. And the funding, they tried to soften the blow to some degree by saying, we'll give you $60,000 to help figure out the plan, and then $80,000 a year for 3 years is my read.
Right.
To help offset the costs. There will be costs. I think, as Commissioner Bear said, our residents will be paying more. There's no doubt about it. that this is ultimately an unfunded mandate, and it will cost us money, cost all of us money to recycle. But we don't really have a choice. We choose to follow the law, at least I do, and it is what it is. I don't make it. I don't necessarily even have to agree with it. I just have to make sure I'm in compliance with that. Yes, sir.
Has Eagle submitted a plan already?
No. That won't work that way. Technically, if you want to if we go right into that, we have to decide whether we're going to do it, and if we're not going to do it, ultimately a township or somebody could choose to do something like that. But reality is, that's not going to happen. Reality is, it's going to be Eagle, and they will develop the plan, decide how we're going to do it, how we're going to, and then tell us what it's going to cost, and we'll have to fund it. Is really what will come down to that. Push come to shove.
So in terms of, I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
So in terms of timeline, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So Eagle has it, do they have a deadline for when their plan will be submitted to the state or to counties, excuse me?
If we choose not to follow through and do it, at some point, they haven't really said.
Correct.
They will just say, okay, we've asked you nicely. Okay, fine, we're going to do it. We'll do it for you, and here's the plan. At some point, they'll give us the plan, say, here's the plan, now you're going to pay for it.
So we have to have our plan planned, I guess, before Eagle submits.
We have to, let's put it this way, if we don't do a plan, Eagle will do one on our behalf.
Okay. I'm
and
sorry.
charge
I'm
us
sorry. Okay.
whatever it costs. As Commissioner Bear said, he'd rather be driving the bus. I agree. And frankly, guys, part of my job is to understand where most of you are on most things. I can't say 100% on anything where you'll vote, but I have a good understanding of the board and how you think and what you believe in. And when I say I expect the board to approve it, I do, because I know all you well enough to know that you'd rather be driving the bus than being dictated to by the state. Whether we like it or not, I'd still rather be in the bus or driving the bus. So that's why I did what I did. As far as the RFP and stuff, hey, I solicit RFP. You know what? You don't have to approve it, but I wanted to get started and get it done. Same token, I sent letters to 7 adjacent counties telling them our intent and asking them what they were going to do. Again, moving forward, because this thing, while the state is flexible in their timeline, I still try to honor the timeline that they've laid out in the law. I think that's the right and respectful thing to do.
So you also mentioned, my last question, thank you. So you had also mentioned, or maybe it was Commissioner Baird mentioned the reality of an increase for constituents. Do we have a rough estimate in terms of percentage what that looks like yet?
No, we do not. And it really is going to come down to some degree what the board decides, what level of recycling.
Oh, okay.
We're doing curbside 2 days a week. Florida does, but not us. Are we doing just drop off? Is it going to be strictly us? Are we going to develop a MRF? Are we going to do a public-private partnership? There's a whole array of answers or questions that need to be answered before we'll have a sense of that. And as far as staffing goes, what I said was one or more. Personally, it's going to be at least, I think, one person, because somebody's got to coordinate and run this. While I may be the director of the Board of Public Works, I'm also the county administrator. I got another 20 departments that I deal with. I can't lead a department myself. So we're going to need someone to do that. And we don't have any department where this fits into. It's not a parks department. It's not a law enforcement. It's not a facilities or IT. We need something like that. We don't really have that. So ultimately, I do believe it's very likely we will need someone to be the management plan or / recycling coordinator for the county, who will be working with, say we're doing a public-private venture. Somebody's got to be there to talk to all the private haulers and so forth to deal with all that sort of thing. So yeah, there'll be, in my mind, at least one person doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To refresh this board's memory, at one time, we did have a public-private partnership, and we had a resource recovery facility that allowed us to recycle. Our waste to energy was our pathway, and we worked that way. That public-private partnership was established originally with Medcap and Eddy as the business model, and we hired a man by the name of Jim Glynn, who answered directly to the Board of Public Works. So we do have a model. I would expect that the position to not directly cost the county general fund money. What I would expect it to be would be the fee that we put in place. We used to call it the hauler fee. We used to call it the waste disposal fee. It was called all kinds of different names, but at the end of the day, if you put 6 yards of trash in a dumpster, you paid a going rate on that yardage. So we collected $12. We had originally worked out the math before the state shut down the resource recovery facility that it was going to cost each individual $25 a yard to dispose of their waste. I would expect the same type of math to come out of this program here for us to figure out how to properly dispose of our waste. That fee was at one time as high as $87 a yard. So be aware that efficiencies do come into play in it, and it does take ongoing and active management of this board as well as whatever agency we put in charge of it. So yeah, to get the efficiencies that we need and want and expect, it will be an ongoing program.
So in regards to the designated planning agency, I read through it in different parts of this plan. The part that sticks out to me is the DPA is the agency and an individual within that agency identified as the primary contact person for administering and preparing the MMP. So my first question is, initially, does this board decide who that individual is going to be? And we don't, and as you said, we have no one in that current capacity as of now.
Correct, and yes.
And so that is going to be a salaried position or a volunteer position? What would that be?
As we've laid it out right here, we're looking to use the 60,000 roughly to hire a consultant. And there's a number of them that were at the conference. The majority are engineering firms that have a environmental side. Like I think Commissioner Bear said EnviroLogic we used to use. Well, they were bought out by Fishbeck. So Fishbeck, I know, is one of the people who we solicited, as well as we posted it where we always post bids and on our website, things like that. So some guy out of his garage who happens to be an expert in this and wants to, bid, he or she could. But at any rate, the expectation is that we will hire, it's great, we've got Region 2 and Jacob to help us get us off the ground here. And as our planning agency, that's frankly normal and kind of expected. But the long-term part of this, they're really not staffed up for that. So what we're looking to do is hire a consultant. That's why we went out to RFP for someone who has some expertise and knowledge in this. As you can see, this is just a tip of the iceberg. It's involved. There'll be a whole lot of meetings, public meetings, and a whole lot of other stuff going on with this. So we need someone to guide and lead us through that process. And frankly, if we don't choose a consultant, an engineering firm or what have you, we could potentially hire someone right out of the chute and use the $60,000 and the 3 consecutive years of $80,000 to fund this person, but they would have to be very knowledgeable and be able to help us write the plan. And then they could transition into the, for lack of a better title, I'll call it recycling coordinator position right after that. So that is an option to try to find somebody who's knowledgeable, who can take us through the process, and then transition into the recycling coordinator position. I think the quicker and frankly more likely scenario is RFP. A lot of consultants, engineering firms and such will apply, and we will look at them and bring them to the board for a decision on whom they choose to hire, assuming you want to go that direction.
Okay, so then beyond that, then we get into, and Chairman Shotwell touched on it, this Materials Management Planning Committee, and he was asking whether the Board of Public Works that we currently have established could do it. And when I look at all the requirements, when you get to the member requirements, it looks as though, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, that for each sitting member, they would be a representative of each bullet point.
That's correct. And maybe, I don't want to put words in Chairman Shotwell's mouth, but so correct me, but I was under the impression that you were saying that the Board of Public Works would be would represent this body as the go-to. So when the recycling coordinator had an issue or concern about this or that, he or she would go to the Board of Public Works versus the full board, is what I was thinking he was saying.
And then it would come to the full board.
So that gets to my core question of, once we establish this committee and that individual that this committee will be directing, does this board sitting here after we have established that have any say going forward? And if so, what is that process going to be? Or we just don't know that yet?
It would follow the normal committee pathway.
Okay.
Okay, so example, the airport board works on a project out at the airport. They do all the legwork. They deal with all the minutia. Then they come to the full board of commissioners through the committee system and present to the committee system what they're gonna do. And we hash it out there.
That answers my question. I just wanted to make sure that was going to be, all right.
We follow the committee pathway.
Okay, thank you.
So that way you have as many public meetings as possible to discuss this. Commissioner Bear.
This, the request for proposals to hire the designated planning agent, when are those proposals due back to us?
They're due, I believe, in my office, June 26th, I think is the date. Is that a Wednesday? I think it's a Wednesday. Gave them basically a month.
So to review, we as a board, through the Administrator Controller's Office, have put out the RFP to find a professional to help us manage how to get to where we got to get to.
Yep.
The Board of Commissioners will be making a decision on who that RFP person is and hiring them after you have qualified them. And then that person will work with us to establish the public committee and hire the different, and bring the different people together and begin meeting with them for 3 to 6 to whatever it is, number of meetings that are needed for that organization. The creation of a fee structure probably, and how much recycling we're gonna do. Correct?
Yeah.
And then,
Making recommendations to this
yeah, and then
body.
work our way through the process and eventually have a professional involved, whether that person is a direct employee of the county or is a public-private partnership of somebody who can work under contract with the county and work with that committee to report back to the board.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And just to drive it home, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the county commissioners. As was indicated earlier, all the different committees and subcommittees and things like that, you either appoint them or fund them, or, the bottom line is the county commissioners control all those kind of things. Now, you have set up thresholds, spending and different things where it doesn't necessarily need to come to the county commissioners, but, you know what those are. It's why we have committees.
So as to what we're going to do this month, we're going to act on whether we become the agency that drafts
Approval
this.
agency, yeah.
Will we be taking, here we are, study session, talking about it. Are we going to take it through committee like general government or something like that? Okay, general government then, and then on to the full board later in the month. Okay. Thank you.
And one thing that might be kind of missing from this discussion, if I could do that, we have to have, is it a supermajority or just a majority of township government approve this plan?
I think it's 67% is the number that pops in my
That
head.
means, just like the solid waste plan before, we're going to need the city and the 17 townships to acquiesce to doing this also. Commissioner Bear.
Is there a different committee we could send this to other than the general government committee? when this goes to committee, I will have questions. And you all know, every one of you know, that the chairman of the General Government Committee never allows me to speak or ask a question. So that all board members can have input, can you assign this to some other committee?
It follows the General Government Committee pathway from Board of Public Works. I will happily entertain all of your questions 2 weeks before through the Administrator Controller's Office and share it with the board. 1, 2, if you have them, put them in writing and give them to us by next Monday. I'm sure Commissioner Vice Chairman Kennedy and I will review them and make sure those questions get answered. And on Tuesday night, if you have public questions, sir, I will recognize you and you'll be able to ask your questions, sir.
Well, that has been the case, that Tuesday night, Board of Commissioners meeting, I pull things from the consent agenda so that I can ask the questions that I was not allowed to ask during committee. You want the questions 2 weeks ahead of time? That's not reasonable. I don't know, a lot of the agendas aren't even published 2 weeks ahead of time. So how could I read the attached documents and create questions, have it to you in 2 weeks ahead of time when I don't even get any of the documents in 2 weeks ahead of time?
You have the documents in your hand right now. They were put in the study session program. 1, 2, Monday, a week from yesterday, is when that committee is going to meet. So you're going to have your questions produced by then anyway. So I don't see where you're saying it's 2 weeks, sir. You have the information that's going to be on the committee. You're going to see the resolution, and you're going to have the opportunity to ask the administrator the questions between now and then. No different than me.
I believe you made the statement that I need to submit my questions 2 weeks ahead of time. If I misunderstood you, then apologize for that. During a discussion in any committee meeting, sometimes your questions come up as a result of the ongoing discussion. New ideas, new thoughts. So some of the questions are just impromptu at the moment. So having a chairman who does not allow everybody to participate is just a bad idea. So is there any way to change the chairman of that committee so I will be allowed to speak?
That's done in January, sir. We'll see what happens then.
So there's no provision for making a change midstream when things are going bad.
Any further questions? Thank you, Jacob, very much.
Thank you.
Any other items to come before the board? Any public comment? Any commissioner comments? Need to entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Duly carried. The left side of the room can go home, the right side staying, I guess.